I went to school up at Kirby Street to St Patrick's, Our Lady in St Patrick's, and that would be the same building probably that my grandparents and my parents went, or certainly my mother. I can remember the big stove. There was like a big furnace thing, coke up in the what was then the infants class, and a guardrail around it. Miss Thwaites used to look after us, and in the afternoon you would lie on these little camp bed things and have a sleep. And then you went into something, I think it might be Mrs Watson's class, and that was over one side of the street, and then you moved down to the big school. And I can remember the things like the gas lights. It was still on gas, and the outside toilets. Sister Agnes was in charge, very much so. And then we moved, I think it was 1963, over to the new school on Ennerdale Road, and we couldn't believe it. It had its own kitchens, and it was clean, and inside toilets, and we had to wear a uniform. It was quite a big sort of culture shock, really. And I can remember the class we had when we were doing the 11 plus. It looked down over the town, and you could watch the railway station and see the goods yard, the trains being moved about, and there was still Wharton's foundry, and you would see the locos taking the materials into Wharton's, and it was all steam. I can remember swinging on Grasslock gates as we went swimming, perhaps at summer, and you would hang on the gates as the trains came past, and you get that smell of smoke. And even now, if you go to a sort of preserved railway, if you get that and the hot oil, it always reminds me of Grasslock level crossing. So that took me up to, I was 11, I went to Cockermouth School, and that was actually the grammar school. I felt, looking back on it, very privileged to go there. It was based on an approved school. That's what it had been in its previous life, and it had been a school for some years. And the first class that I was in was called Classroom Z, and it was actually the old washhouse of the school, and it had like a slate floor that sloped back to front rather. And I can also remember the slope, and that was because in the old days it obviously had sinks and things there, and when water had slopped it drained naturally down the slope. That was quite unusual. That was it. Now in these days, that just wouldn't happen. It would be a totally different process to go through. But anyway, I arrived at Maryport on the rather prophetic date of the 1st of April, which, I thought, oh, there you go. But anyway, thoroughly enjoyed it here. Chris Heslop was the inspector. There was 2 or 3 old sergeants, Sid Andrews and Alec Forsyth, Jack Lund. And in those days at Maryport, life was relatively simple. If you were on days, you walked to town centre, and on nights there was what we called a walk. You walked the sergeant one side and the nightman the other, and you did all the doors, and you went round, checked the back of the cope, and Robert the meal pot to the dole office and Greggins's, and you ended up on Midland Bank Corner somewhere about 11 o'clock or so to see the pubs out, and then you would walk down onto the quay and check Palmer's and one place and another down there, walk back up for about 1 o'clock for a bite to eat. And if I was on nights, sometimes if I came past Quato's, remember Quato's at Furnace Lane, and I'd gone to school with Frank, I think it was, would be in my class at St Patrick's, and old Ma Quato, an absolute legend. She used to sit and make the patties, and Philip, her son, he's still alive, isn't he? Still walks the dogs. If they saw I was on nights, I would come past on part of this walk, and they would say, right, it'll be here for you. And when I came back the second time, there would be a parcel of fish and chips for supper off Quato's, which I suppose in these day and age might be seen as an integrity test. Mm-hmm. But anyway, sometimes I had fish and chips from the famous Quato's. And at Maryport in those days, you worked nights on your own. At 1 o'clock, I don't think I'm giving any state secrets away because it's all changed now. At 1 o'clock, the sergeant and what we call the half-night men who worked 5 to 1, they went home. And I say men, there was no women in rural stations or detached stations in those at that time.